Welcome, everybody, to the Monthly Movie Dispatch, the show where we get together and we talk about the movies that we liked and we loved and we want to recommend from the last month. The difference between our show and every other movie show that's on the internet is that we're high school friends and we'd be talking about movies even if no one was listening. This is our big end-of-the-year episode. We're going to be doing our top 10 movies of 2019. We're going to be counting down one at a time, going over each of the movies, and we're psyched about it. This is always our funnest episode. We do this every year. I'm psyched. I know you guys are psyched. Let's introduce who's here. We've got Shaun Bowlby in Seattle, Washington.
Hey.
We've got Diel in Everett.
Oh, hi.
And Brandon Bowlby in New York City.
How's it going, guys?
Dude, it's going great. It's going great. So we're doing our top 10 today. I'm really excited about it. I already said that. But real quick, before we jump in, I kind of want to do a roundtable real quick and talk about basically how many movies we've seen from 2019 and if you have any big regrets, like if there's any movies that you missed that you want to just throw out there that you missed that might pop up on other lists or whatever. So, Brandon, do you want to go first? How many movies have you seen from 2019?
I saw 87 films. Kind of a weak year for me, especially compared to last year. But I think the quality was pretty high. I had like 30 of the films. I gave like over 4 stars. So I enjoyed a lot of them. And I don't have any like major misses. So I don't know. I'm feeling pretty good about my list. There's that film that won like Sundance early in the year that like people didn't really end up talking about it when it came out this Christmas. Forget the name.
The Report. I don't know if that's the
that
movie
was
you're talking
Adam Driver. Was that the Adam Driver one?
Amazon movie.
Clearly, it wasn't that important because we have no idea what movie we were talking about. So, Shaun, how many movies do you see?
I saw 41 movies, or sorry, 41 movies, which is down
41.
from last year. Yeah. And yeah, my biggest regrets are a few foreign films. Weathering with You, which is an anime film from the director of Your Name, which I really, really, really loved. The Souvenir as well. I also didn't see Honey Boy. And those are I guess my biggest regrets.
Derek, how about you, bud?
I saw 53 movies this year. For the first time, I'm not the lowest.
The loser.
Yeah, I'm not the loser. My biggest regrets. I mean, there's a handful of little movies that I missed throughout the year, but the ones I really wish I got to see, at least before, I probably still see some of them before the awards and stuff like that. But Little Women, still haven't gotten out to go see that. Ford vs. Ferrari, and there was one more Oscar movie that I haven't seen. I can't remember what it was, but those were really the big ones I was really looking forward to see and just haven't made it out to watch them yet.
Totally. So I saw 108 movies this year. So
Jesus.
I accomplished my goal and beat Brandon. Just kidding. That wasn't my goal. My goal actually was to get to 100. That's like my goal every year is to get to 100. So I got to 100 and then I saw 8 more and I'm pretty happy about it. I feel like the biggest movie I'm missing is Little Women. I'm still hoping I'll see it before the Academy Awards. And there were a few other foreign films that I missed out on, but I don't know, I got to 108 and January's just been kind of crazy. I'm actually, for next year, one of my goals is to watch less movies. So I'm already working on that.
It's going to be tough.
Well, I don't think I told you guys, but I'm going back to school. So I gotta...
What?
Usually it's my normal thing to watch a movie every single night. And instead of watching a movie every single night, I have to study for 2 hours. So
Yeah.
it kind of just makes sense that I'll watch less movies. But, it's all good. It's all good stuff.
Jojo Rabbit was the other one I missed.
Oh, Derek.
Derek. Oh.
It hurts the heart.
Okay. But anyway, so I think we should just jump right into it, guys. Real quick, I'm going to explain the rules. We're kind of taking the rules from the Top 10 show, hosted by John Roca and Matt Nost. You can find their podcast on wherever you can find podcasts, called the Top 10 Show. Their whole thing is that they do top 10 lists, and they start at the bottom, they start at 10, and their whole gimmick, not whole gimmick, but what they added to the top 10 thing is if you have a movie and someone else is doing the movie later, you punt it. So if I have a movie, if I say number 10 is this, and someone else has it way up higher on their list, they say punt, and then we don't talk about that movie until it circles back around to where we're at with them. So that's the Top 10 show. I feel like we need to give credit to them because it's their concept. But
it's a great concept.
Yeah, it's great. I feel like there's a bunch of podcasts that do Top 10 shows, and it's always like, come on, guys, talk about the movies all at once. You know, like
yeah. And it's frustrating that the person who had it like at number 10 gets to talk about it longer, and
right. The guy who has it number 1 should get to talk about the most as it goes along. But anyway, I'm excited. I just want to hear what you guys have on your list. I think we should just jump right into it. Brandon, you're going to go first.
All right. Pretty excited about this one. Snuck up on me. But my number 10 is David Robert Mitchell's Under the Silver Lake.
Ooh, yeah.
Nice pick, Brandon. Nice pick. I'm glad it's on there. That's awesome. Good. Cool.
This was way earlier on in the year, and when I was putting together my list of remembering movies that stood out, when I finally got to this one, I was just like, holy fuck, I had a good time watching this movie. This is his follow-up to It Follows, and it is so ambitious and such a great ride from beginning to end. I don't think this movie is for everybody at all. Got very mixed reviews. It's kind of a love it or hate it, but I definitely came out loving it at the end.
Super creative choice, Brandon. That's such a creative movie. Super weird. I agree it's not for everyone, but I'm glad you put it on your list.
Yeah, you guys talk about that movie. That got me to watch it, and I fucking love it. It's so good.
Yeah, that's another one I haven't seen yet.
Cool. So, Brandon, that's your number 10. No punts. So, okay. So, the other thing I should say before we get too deep in this is that we are keeping track of our point system for these movies. So, at the end of the show, we're going to culminate, and whichever movie got the most points, it's a pretty basic point scale. The number 10 movie gets 1 point. Number 1 movie gets 10 points. You can fill in the rest, and then if it appears on multiple lists, it gets a couple bonus points for every list it's on. So, just sorry I didn't say that ahead of time, but that's the point scale that we're working with. So, let's keep this party rolling. So, up next we have Derek. What's your number 10?
My number 10 is James Gray's Ad Astra.
Punt.
Oh, punt. Yeah. First punt.
First punt.
Right.
Okay.
Sweet.
So, Shaun, where are you at?
I'm here. I'm right here where I've been sitting. Here I am. So, yeah, my number 10 is Booksmart.
Cool pick.
Yeah.
Cool pick.
I really loved this movie. I feel like there's been a lot of these kind of, I think for the last 4 years or so, ever since The Edge of 17 came out, there's been a really good coming of age female kind of high school, middle school movie with Edge of 17, Lady Bird, 8th Grade, and then this movie. And I feel like every one of those I enjoyed more than the last. And even though this movie ended up being lower on my list, I just had a blast with it. And yeah, I loved this movie, loved the performances. It was hilarious, brilliantly directed for Olivia Wilde's debut film. I believe it's her debut film. Yeah, just absolutely loved this movie. Booksmart. That's the
Great
one.
pick, Shaun. Great pick. Fun movie.
I just watched
awesome.
that really recently.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really, really good.
Okay. So my number 10, I guarantee is going to be a punt. Sorry that it's number 10. I had a hard time, man. Like this list was hard this year. I felt so bad for number 11 because I just, man, I had 19 movies that could have been in my top 10. And I was like, I was sad about all of them. But, so I don't know. Number 10, I absolutely loved. Guarantee it's going to be a punt. 1917.
Punt.
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 Okay.
God,
Okay, Brandon, your turn.
how dare you?
I know.
Okay, my number 9 is Long Day's Journey into Night. Probably no punts. I don't think any of you guys had seen this.
Maybe never
Correct.
heard of
No.
it.
No.
Okay. This is a Chinese film that I don't think I got to like highlight it. I think I mentioned it, but I didn't get to really talk about it too much here because I was the only one who did see it. Anyways, Chinese foreign film. This is a really amazing, unique movie. For me, this kind of takes the place of like Hidden Life on just like complete beauty from beginning to end on what you're seeing on screen. And it's separated into two really unique acts. The first hour is kind of this whole movie is very storyless. This guy just wandering around China in the most beautiful cinematography you've ever seen in your entire life, kind of like dealing with his past, coming back to his hometown. And then the second half is a single take, 59-minute long unbroken shot that carries out to the end of the film. And it's kind of just a feast for the eyes, and this movie just like was gorgeous from beginning to end.
Is
So
it a
it's my
true
number
unbroken
9.
shot like Victoria or like
Yes.
1917? Nice.
Yes.
Cool. Yeah.
One set,
Wow.
one unbroken shot. But
I've heard about that movie and it's on Canopy. I almost watched it, but didn't get around to it. So it's pretty cool hearing that it's in your top 10, number 9.
Yeah.
Can you say the name one more time?
Long Day's Journey into Night.
Cool. So that's Long Day's Journey into Night, Chinese film, Brandon's number 9. So, Derek, what's your number 9?
My number 9 is The Last Black Man in San Francisco.
Punt.
Punt?
'Kay.
Ooh, cool.
Sweet.
Did Nick punt?
No. I was just repeating that you.
Oh, you didn't?
Sorry.
Come on.
Hey,
Okay.
real quick, let me let Jinx out. She's growling at me. One sec.
It was definitely in my top 19. So
Okay.
it was close. So I didn't mean to say spoilers. I shouldn't have said punt at all because we like the mystery. So I shouldn't have said. I shouldn't have repeated it. But yeah, sorry.
All right, ready to go.
Okay, so punt on The Last Black Man in San Francisco. Shaun, what's your number 9?
My number 9 film is Midsommar.
Punt.
Punt.
Love it. I get so excited.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Cool. Cool. Well, my number 9 then is The Farewell. No puns?
That's another
cool.
movie I didn't get
Surprising.
around to
It's a
seeing.
contender.
Damn it.
Good
Yeah.
pick,
Yeah.
Nick.
Yeah, it was honestly like it was pretty close between this and The Last Black Man in San Francisco. They're kind of similar stories for me, just both really personal movies, and this one kind of just eased the front a little bit more, just because it was such a unique perspective from a culture that I really didn't know that much about, and it really put you right into this culture and kind of dealt with so many themes and kind of topics that go along with the whole thing. Like, if you don't know what the movie's about, it's about this girl played by Awkwafina who finds out that her grandma is dying, like she gets cancer, and then her whole family is not telling the grandma, and they all go and visit her and fake this wedding to just kind of say their goodbyes, and she has to grapple with whether or not she should tell her and why their culture is that way, and there's all these idiosyncratic things that happen, and it's just a really sweet movie that gives you an insight to another culture, and I just really loved it. So that's the farewell.
Sure.
That's
that was
number 9.
That was definitely my 11.
Nice.
It was kicked off the list just yesterday. It was on there for a long time.
It happens. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that was number 9. Brandon, what's your number 8?
All right, my number 8 is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Punt.
Figured.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Cool. So, Derek, what is your number 8?
My number 8 is Ari Aster's Midsommar.
Punt.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's climbing the ladder.
Okay, Shaun, what is your number 8?
My number 8 is Toy Story 4.
Nice.
Cool. Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
And I loved this movie. It just, I think like everyone was a little, including myself, was a little worried about the Toy Story 4 because Toy Story 3 left off on such a great note. But then like I saw this movie and it turned out to be the movie I didn't know that I wanted or needed.
So true.
And it it adds, I really think it adds a lot to the series. And it's just, and it's another super fun adventure with these characters, and brings back some characters that you haven't seen in many movies, and has a whole lot of fun with them. This may also in part be a series kind of vote, Martin Scorsese winning for The Departed type thing, or Return of the King winning for
a career
win. But yeah, it's all these movies are in my mind almost perfect, and it really is to me the perfect franchise, and it beats any other franchise out there in terms of overall quality. And this movie just kind of solidified that, and
what a claim!
I will fight anyone on that.
Shaun, I'm with you, man. I'm totally on your side on this one. Mm-hmm. I had Toy Story 4 in my top 19. I feel bad it didn't make it. And honestly, it might have had a better chance if it was on Disney Plus and I had a chance to rewatch it.
Yeah, I did watch this movie twice.
It's not on Disney Plus?
No, they don't have it. It's coming in February. They're kind of spacing some of the releases out. But I rewatched Toy Story 3. Man, fucking they're so good. They're the best. Yeah. I'm totally with you. One of the best franchises ever. Yeah. So
also, it kind of like is as good as all of them are. All of Pixar's like animation, that movie like ups their animation another notch. Like it's something else.
Yeah.
It's so freaking crazy how good that movie looks.
So good. Yeah. Well, great pick, Shaun. That was Toy Story 4, and that was your number 8.
Mm-hmm.
So my number 8 is Jordan Peele's Us.
Nice.
Kind of figured it wasn't going to be on any of your guys' lists, but man, I loved that movie. I know there's some logical flaws about the big concept of it, but I was completely in on this movie. I love how chilling and scary it was, and how it had a lot to say about social issues, and how when you view it a second time, it's a different experience, and a third time is a different experience. Like, there are so many little tidbits in this movie that I just love to latch onto, and it was just such a unique and interesting idea, and I don't know, I just loved the execution of it. I loved how there were hilarious parts and there were scary parts, and parts that got you thinking. So yeah, and
he's becoming a really cinematic director.
Yeah, for sure. And
oh my gosh,
there are some really scary parts. Just the other day I watched, it was listening to the /film top 10, and Us was on one of their top 10s, and it just played the trailer in audio for that movie, and like just listening to that,
Chills.
I was just like, yeah, I got all tensed up and I got chills, and yeah.
So I don't know, I love that movie. I think there were a bunch of really good horror movies that came out this year, and I wanted to put a bunch of them on there, and I had to include Us just because of how psyched I was after I saw it, and then after seeing it again, I was just as psyched. So
Nice.
Us is my number 8. So let's go to number 7. Brandon, what's your number 7?
Speaking of horror, this year's out of control for acclaimed horror films. My number 7 is The Lighthouse.
Punt.
Knew it.
Cool.
You got me, Derek.
Cool. Okay. Derek, you're number 7.
So this movie was really surprising for me, and I only watched it because I heard you guys talk about it a bunch. But it was my number 7 is I Lost My Body.
Nice.
Wow. Cool.
God,
Derek, that's my number 11.
Really?
It got kicked off by Under the Silver Lake. I was
Nice.
like ready to do it.
Yeah. This movie really like swept me off my feet. I didn't realize I was gonna like. I really just threw it on because I saw it got nominated for Academy Award, and you guys were kind of talking about it.
It was
And
on Netflix. Like
yeah,
easy.
yeah, exactly. So I just popped it on, and like Phoenix could watch it. It's like an animated movie. He's kind of interested, you know. And so, God, yeah, it's so good, and it's just such a like heartwarming story, kind of. But it's like
It's heart something.
I don't know. It just really connected
Yeah.
with me. I like really felt a lot going through that movie, and the gimmick of it, because I do think this movie has like a gimmick that it's kind of playing with, and how it pays off in the end was just so like. It was like sometimes movies do like weird creative things because just to be weird and creative, you know. In this movie, it felt like they did a really weird and creative thing that just made the movie so much better by taking that weird chance and doing this story about this hand that's like lost in this. And it's like, I just couldn't believe how well everything clicked, and just how like into every scene I was like just sinking in my seat, just like, God damn, this is so freaking good. Yeah, really glad it got nominated for Academy Award. I don't think it's gonna beat Toy Story 4 though, but
Yeah, I watched this movie on a cell phone on a plane ride, it did like it. Just the animation, I think, needs to be called out. Like,
yeah,
this is
for
some
sure.
of like the best animation and editing for a film like this. It really, really blew me away.
Yeah.
And the director's Jeremy Clappin. So thought it should be said.
Great
Yeah.
pick, Derek. Loved it. Great movie. Totally surprising how good that movie was.
Yeah.
Okay, Shaun, your number 7.
So my number 7 is a movie that until yesterday was not on my list, and I know it's going to be on all of your lists. But then I did a double feature yesterday, and I had so much fun with this movie, and it definitely like bumped up my list.
We all know what it is.
By
We
quite
saw
a
what you
bit.
watched yesterday.
And my number 7 is Parasite.
Hell yeah.
Punt that out of here.
Punt.
Okay, so my number 7.
Are you? Oh, go ahead.
We already know it's going to be a punt because I heard other voices say it. Because it's already been punted once, and that's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Punt.
Ooh.
Cool.
Ooh, Shaun doesn't have it. This is a Derek owned movie.
It's a good
Okay.
year. Good year for movies.
Yeah.
Too many
So,
good.
Brandon, your number 6.
We're already back around. Oh, I know it's a punt, anyways. My number 6 film is Jojo Rabbit.
Punt.
Yeah. Okay.
I was like, someone?
Yeah.
Is it?
Shaun.
Okay. Is it? Okay. Derek, your number 6.
My number 6 is Todd Phillips' Joker.
I knew you'd have this on there.
Yeah.
Someone had to be Derek.
This was one of the craziest movie experiences I had this year. Like, I don't know if I remember specifically going to the theater. I'm always cold in the Lowe's AMC theater, or their Dolby. So I had a coat and stuff. And I remember the first thing at the end of the movie, like, it's really intense. And I turned to Christina. I was just like, I'm dripping in sweat. Because I was seriously like, God, this is like one of the most stressful movies I think I've ever seen. I was so like nervous throughout the whole film. Like, I really had no idea what was going to happen and what kind of movie it was going to be. And what it ended up being was just really fascinating, I think. It was like such a cool way to explore. Like, DC needed to really shake things up and do something different with their movies. And I think this is exactly what they should be doing, which is letting people do fresh takes on their characters. And it was so good. Joaquin Phoenix, like, just creates this new person that we've never really seen before, especially not like this. And it was really cool to see Todd Phillips actually produce like a really well crafted film from top to bottom. The cinematography is great, the score is amazing. It just looks so good, and it feels really good. And it was just really, really impressive.
Yep, agree. Cool. It's very close to my top 10, for sure.
Yeah.
Cool.
Sweet.
So that was your number 6. Joker, number 6. Shaun, what's your number 6?
My number 6 is Knives Out.
Oh,
Derek.
No, it's not on my list.
Oh, surprising. Okay.
Wow. I was sure that it would be on someone's list.
I was sure it was going to be on multiple people's list. Yeah. I'm surprised.
So this movie, I was a part of my double feature yesterday. It was lower on my list. I think it was like number 9 or 10. And I had, again, so much fun with it that I just had to bump it up. The word I would use to describe this movie, my experience of it, is it just tickled me throughout the entire movie. I was just so happy and like wiggling around with every little detail and every new clue and hint and little fun moment throughout this movie. Rian Johnson it just felt like Rian Johnson was having so much fun with this movie and with the genre and with his characters. And it just really comes through. It's just the funnest movie I saw all year, straight up. And on top of that, there's like some interesting, very topical, current ideas in the movie, and great performances, and just all around a really, really great movie. My number 6.
This movie like got pushed off of my list very, very late, like within the last couple days. I'm really surprised, like all year leading up to it, and then even after I saw it, I was like, oh yeah, it's definitely going to be in my top 10. Like, why wouldn't it be? Really surprised it didn't make it. Yeah, that's just a testament to the year, I think.
Yeah, I feel like this year more than anything, the lesson for me has been like other people's taste. Just there's been so many interesting movies that have come out this year, and even the ones that weren't my favorites were interesting. And Knives Out was certainly a movie I thoroughly enjoyed. It was in my top 19, but it just wasn't like, it just didn't have it to get into the top 10. But if this was any other year, it probably would. Like if this was last year, it probably would have been in the top 8. Would have been 7 or 8.
Us probably wasn't even in my top 20, but like what an interesting film. Like I have so much respect for it still.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just it seems like there were just so many good movies this year, but not only that, there were so many sort of like sectors of different tastes and different movies that could appeal to different people. Speaking of which, my next movie I'm pretty sure is going to be on someone else's list. Actually, I'm pretty positive it's going to be a punt. But my number 6 is Uncut Gems.
Punt.
Guys.
Wonderful.
I didn't see Uncut Gems. Oh, God.
Oh, no.
What have I done?
That was the one.
So embarrassing.
Right.
Okay, guys, we're in the top 5. This is where it gets serious. No more joking. Just kidding. You can joke.
Stop joking. No. Hard line.
All right.
No more fun
Brandon,
games.
number 5.
Yeah. Okay, so this one won't be a punt because I have been punting it so far multiple times. My number 5 is Ari Aster's Midsommar.
Nice. There it is.
What
There it is.
a great film.
Yes.
Beginning to end, style and substance. God, just the opening, like 15 mortifying minutes of this movie.
God.
You're just like in the hands of a master horror brutality director. Yeah, and it just doesn't quit. Like, this is a completely unique and original take on a daylight horror film. And the characters are interesting, love them or hate them, mostly hate them. The setting is like absolutely fascinating. The whole world that you're witnessing through this pretty long, almost 2.5 hour film. But this is definitely the year for horror. Like, I can't believe how high this movie cropped up, but the more I kept thinking about it, the more just like beautiful and perfect it is. What an amazing director. Only a second movie.
For sure. And his previous movie was like my number 2 or 3 from last year. Yeah, this one was number 9 for me, and it blew me away. It's super interesting, and yeah, I love this movie.
What was it for you, Derek?
What on the list? It was my number 8. And yeah, I mean, I echo all the same things you guys said, but like this movie also, it deals with things in such a unique way that's unique to like the story of this movie. But I mean, like emotions and stuff, because a lot of this movie is just about like dealing with emotions and like how different people react to things differently. And like the ideas it puts forth are just so endlessly fascinating to me. And just we just sit with these people for so long, and like it just gets deeper and deeper. And yeah, it's just a fantastic movie, and it's a crazy feat for a horror movie to be like this movie. It was just really fascinating, and yeah.
Something really unique happened to me yesterday at band practice. My bandmate Eric showed up with a new T-shirt that was like bright red, and in the center was just the square image of a man in a bear costume sitting on a hay barrel with flames behind him. And it was all kind of like old and like washed out. And I was looking, I was like, oh shit, that is such a good, like perfect T-shirt design. And then it just got me thinking like the whole night about the movie, and it probably bumped up a spot or 2 just because of that.
Nice.
Yeah, I didn't have it in my top 10, but if you guys don't mind, I have just a couple things I wanted to say about it. The more I thought about this movie throughout the year, I wasn't super hot on it when I first saw it, but the more I thought about it, it really stuck with me. It was close to making my top 10, and if I could have pulled myself to watch it again, it might have gone into the top 10. But that opening 15 minutes is what stopped me from watching it again. I was like, I don't think I can handle that right now every single time. And I've even thought about turning it on and just skipping that part, because holy shit, that part was so traumatizing. It was so fucked up. But I wanted to say I actually really, really want to watch the director's cut. Even though the movie is already like 2.5 hours long, I hear the director's cut adds a lot to it, and I'm really interested in it. So I'm going to try to watch that sometime soon, maybe next year for Horror Movie Month, but very interested. And one thing that you guys haven't said, and you didn't say on our podcast either, because I remember I was going to bring up what I thought was the best part of the movie, that none of you guys brought up, and then I didn't actually end up bringing it up, but its use of drug use in that movie, like mushrooms, was the most accurate I've ever seen on film. Like by far, that was how it really feels to be on drugs. Like that first scene where they're sitting up on the hill,
so subtly.
Yeah, where they're sitting up on a hill doing the mushrooms, and you can just kind of see the trees and the grass kind of waving a little bit. That's actually what hallucination looks like. And then how she started panicking, and she ran down the hill, and the camera got close to her face, and it was like an overwhelming sensation. That's having a bad trip. Like that is what that feels like. And such a good movie. Like it bumped up pretty high for me. So I wish it could make my top 10, but great choice.
Yeah.
Let's keep it rolling, guys. What's Derek, what's your number 5?
My number 5 is Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Was that it? Is that where it lands?
I just like it.
Cool.
Wait, so does that mean someone else shares this with me? Because it got punted already, didn't it?
Yeah.
Brandon
Nick
punted
and
it,
Brandon.
Brandon said it first, then I said it second, and then you said third. So it's on 3 of our lists.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God, that makes sense. Yeah. Okay. God, what to say about it? It's
good film.
Yeah, it's just like a solid.
great.
It's Quentin Tarantino. He just like pumps out a solid classic after another.
Casual classic.
Yeah, and I just, God, this year like Brad Pitt is like kind of a star this year. I mean, he always is, but like
already on our list twice.
Yeah, he's awesome. He really was like one of my favorite parts of this movie. But the whole movie is really, really great, and it's cool to see Quentin make a less. Mostly, it's not as like cynical as a lot of his movies are, and it's like a pretty upbeat, kind of positive, happy movie for until the last like, the dread slowly builds over the second half of the film, but it was just fun to see like this big budget period piece about making movies.
Oh my gosh!
And not as gimmicky either.
Yeah, there's
which is kind of a unique take for him. Usually, these films are around this huge concept that runs through the whole thing. This one is more normal.
It's a lot
I totally
of
agree.
like
I thought it was like his most mature movie up until obviously it kind of takes a turn at some point.
Good word.
But yeah, like I thought it was very, it kind of just told a normal story that was really interesting and relied on its characters and yeah.
See, I want to push back a little bit on how normal it is because I feel like sure the story nothing super like crazy like violent happens for most of the movie, but like the way that movie is structured is unlike almost any other movie. Like there's hardly a story in that movie. Like there's basically no plot. It's just these characters just hanging out, and then it goes into random flashbacks that take up half hours of time. You're basically watching Leonardo DiCaprio act in a different TV show for like 20-30 minutes. Like the way that movie is structured is unlike any other movie, and it can be kind of confusing the first time you watch it. Like the first time I was like, where's this going, what's happening in this movie? But totally along for the ride. Love what they did with history. Like I loved Derek the set pieces, like how they recreated Hollywood. So perfect, authentic, and I mean no spoilers about the ending, but like perfect.
God, I will say like, yeah, that ending for a lot of reasons will be like imprinted in my brain forever. But what I'll never forget is how hard the entire theater was laughing throughout that whole sequence. It's like what's happening on screen and what's happening like in everyone's seats is just doesn't like seem like it would mesh. Yeah, it doesn't. But it's
except for people who know the history of Quentin Tarantino,
right? Yeah, exactly. So
great pick.
Number 5.
Great pick, Derek. Cool. So that was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Derek's number 5. Shaun, what's your number 5?
My number 5 is Uncut Gems.
Oh, fucking
Yeah.
punt.
Yeah.
Punt?
Oh,
Yeah,
I was reading my
definitely.
list.
I was like, there's no way.
Yeah, it has to be because we know
Yeah.
what Brandon's
Of
number
course
5 was
Brandon's
already. So
punting. Yeah.
yeah, cool. So my number 5 is a punt from earlier, but I think that was the only punt. So that would be Ad Astra, James Gray's Ad Astra. I loved this
Great
movie.
pick.
I mean, I remember telling you guys, like, when I left the theater, I was convinced that it was going to be on the top of all of our lists. And it turned out, like, I liked this movie more than most people did, but it was completely up my alley. Like, talking about taste with film, like, I get that this movie wouldn't be the taste for a lot of people. It's slow, it's contemplative, it has a few pretty cheesy elements like with the voiceovers, but none of that bothered me. Like, I was just along for the ride of having Brad Pitt think about his dad, think about mortality, think about the universe. Like, I was just completely on board for all of that. And then not to mention the set pieces were gorgeous. Like, the opening scene alone blew my socks off. Like, literally my feet went numb while I was watching the beginning of that film. And then, like, the
So
moon
many
sequence,
memorable moments spaced out through that movie.
so much. And you know, and I'm a sucker for these kinds of big space movies. You know, like, I love space travel movies. So Lost in Space type movies, like, I'm on board for it. So
Well,
yeah,
I feel
man.
like it's been a long time since we've gotten a big space movie that's, like you said, like, contemplative. Like, we had, like, Interstellar, but I don't know. Everyone has their gripes with that movie, and I think it's a little ham-fisted. This one, like, really lets you, like, it gives you so much to think about, and, like, it doesn't give you, I mean, it has its own kind of take on things, but I just feel like it's been a long time since we've had, like, a big, like, celestial movie that just, like, introduces ideas and, like,
Right.
lets you just think about them.
Because Interstellar kind of tells you what it's trying to say. Like,
Right,
Interstellar
yeah.
kind of explicitly says, hey, this is kind of what the movie's about. Whereas I remember with Ad Astra, like, there were a lot of different takes for it. Like, some people were like, you know, he's talking about religion and Christianity. And then other people were like, it's actually about atheism. Like, he's talking about God doesn't exist. And, like,
Right.
it's kind of cool that a movie like that can have different perspectives and you can chew on a lot of different things
What
with
an
it.
ending, Discovery. The opposite of Discovery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that's such a
Yeah.
brilliant concept.
Yeah.
Kind of getting chills just hearing you guys talk about it. Like, God, I wish this is my top 10. I want to rewatch it so bad.
Yeah.
Well, it's on video, so we all could watch it. But yeah, so that was my number 5, Ad Astra, and fucking Brad Pitt again. I'm sorry, but like,
Yeah.
oh man, I thought that was his best performance, and he barely did anything in it. It was like just pulling back, you know, like.
Just the way you said that was good.
Yeah.
He barely did anything. Yeah.
I mean, in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, he took his shirt off. In this one, he like floated around. Great performances.
Amazing.
So we're at number 4. Brandon, what is your number 4?
My number 4 is one of the early loves in the year for me that blew me away. And this might be the lowest budget film on the list, but Last Black Man in San Francisco. This is
Nice.
Joe Talbot's film, which I haven't followed this guy at all. But when I saw this movie, I kind of just like absolutely fell in love with it. It creates this like really unique, heightened world of San Francisco that's just a little bit stepped out into fiction. Of this guy trying to live in what was his father's home in a really nice gentrified neighborhood in San Francisco. A beautiful movie that, like, the ending, you guys say this a lot, and this is one time it actually happens to me, but like my mind goes back to like the ending message of this film often. And I've like literally said it out loud like maybe a dozen times throughout this year to people because it's very poignant and just really resonates with me what this film like is trying to say.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I know exactly what you're talking about. And honestly, there's another movie that isn't going to be on my top 10, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be on at least someone else's that I think about relating to that ending and what that ending is saying. It's just like a little tidbit, but I think about you in New York City and how, I mean, you've only been there for like 4 or 5 years at this point. How long have you been in New York? But like,
yeah, 6,
but like you're totally a New Yorker and you love it, you know, and it's like part of you. And I mean, it's like San Francisco is it's like an exploration of San Francisco, and different perspectives that people have had on this city that people love, and a lot of new people live in too. So
yeah, this was my number 9.
Right, this made your list, Derek, right? Yeah.
Yes, this was my number 9, and I think it's free on Amazon right now. Amazon Prime.
Yep,
it's on Prime.
Yeah, really good. Go check it out. I mean, pretty much what you said. It's got like a weird, like a heightened version of San Francisco, but not like far enough that like if you jumped into the movie, you'd be like, oh, what's this weird take on San Francisco? But they like, it's really weird how they do it. But God, this movie, just like the relationship between these two main characters really won me over. Throughout the whole movie, it's just such a, like, there's just so much, like, it feels like one of those movies that is so personal. Like, every aspect of this movie just feels, it's like, just, there's so much love just everywhere. And it's like, some of it's like, like tough love and stuff too. And it's just, it's a really great, low budget little indie movie, and it's the soundtrack I listen to fairly regularly too. It's so freaking good.
Really,
yeah, it's a beautiful score.
Yeah, really, really good.
You guys are doing the same thing with Ad Astra for me right now, where I'm just like hearing you guys talk about The Last Black Man in San Francisco, and I'm like, I just want to watch it again. I want to find time to watch this movie again. It's so good.
Yeah, this movie.
It's also like. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Shaun.
I was going to say this movie probably should be on my movies that I missed list, because I tried to squeeze it in before this podcast, and I ended up watching it on an airplane, which was a bad decision. There was a lot of commotion going on for some reason in that flight, and then there was a lot of turbulence, and I feel like on an airplane, it's kind of hard to hear movies sometimes. And I ended up not being able to like be into the movie as I probably should have been if I had watched it like on my own somewhere.
Yeah,
and
that's too bad.
Yeah, it was very unfortunate. But I will say it was, even though I wasn't as engaged in the movie as I probably should have been or would have been otherwise, the ending was really impactful for me, and I really did feel an interesting emotional connection to the characters and what they were doing, and so definitely a movie I need to rewatch.
Yeah, great movie. I feel bad it didn't make my top 10, but I'm glad it was so high on your list, Brandon. So we're at number 4. So we're at Derek. What is your number 4?
My number 4 was Robert Eggers' The Lighthouse.
Ooh.
It's all yours.
Derek, this was my number 11. This was the movie that I feel so bad about more than any other movie, because it was my number 11.
So far away.
And my number 7.
Yeah.
All right. God, what...
Sorry, Brandon, that was your number
unique.
6?
My number 7.
Sure.
It's probably the most unique movie I saw this year. I don't even know. I think like it got lumped into the horror category more just because Robert Eggers had made a horror movie. I don't know how horrifying it really is, but it's just so. It's such like a. I'm trying to think of how to describe it, because it's like
a mood.
Well, it's a mood, but it's so there's so much work done in this movie. every movie there is, but it's like, they're doing a different aspect ratio. It's black and white. It takes place in like one location, and it's really vague on a lot of the story elements of what's happening. There's just so much, I feel like they ask a lot from the viewer in this movie, and I think in return they deliver so much. Like, this is probably one of my, it's probably my favorite Robert Pattinson movie. I think this is my favorite performance he's done. And
Not New Moon?
No. Willem Dafoe was amazing in it, and I think I saw it with you, Shaun. And I remember, like, the first thing I was thinking about, and I think this is part of why this movie just flows so well. When we walked out, I was like, I don't think I've never felt that two actors were having more fun making a movie than when I watched this movie. They're just like, it felt like they were playing off each other so well, and they're just such interesting characters, and the things they do were just so funny and sad and sometimes kind of creepy and scary, but just like, what a fascinating, weird vision, that Robert Eggers had with this movie.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So this might be weird to say, but I feel, so this was my number 7, and I feel like if this movie had came out by like Hitchcock in the 50s, this would be like regarded as like top 100 films of all time, like ever made. And what I mean by that, I guess, is that there's just like so much control over like the craft of cinema in this film from every single aspect and department that is movie making. It is like such an impressive artistic vision.
Yeah.
And I think because it's in like 2019, it's gonna disappear like a lot of these great horror movies that come out now are.
Yeah.
As perfect of a film as it is. But
I don't know. Robert Eggers he's kind of maybe he doesn't get as much clout as Ari Astra, but he's certainly crafting like a reputation. I mean, just between The Witch and The Lighthouse. Yeah, and I mean the Witch people like more and more and more as the years go by. Like, I'm pretty sure that was like same thing with The Lighthouse, where it was on the border of my top 10. I don't know I can't remember if it made my top 10, but now it's like one of my favorite horror movies that I'll go back to like frequently. And I feel like The Lighthouse could be the same thing, where like I'm going to want to revisit this movie, and I'm pretty sure I'll see and discover more the next time I watch it, and I think I'll appreciate it more. And I think people are going to talk about this movie for a while. I mean, who knows?
I hope so.
And I think it does depend heavily on the guy's career. If he's a director that people in the future are going to want to come back and revisit his career, I think it could have a pretty strong lasting effect for sure. Like an Alfred Hitchcock, weird Alfred Hitchcock horror.
This is such a fucking weird movie. I have no idea
weird.
how so
it's
many people
such
saw
a weird
it.
movie. It's so bizarre.
I know not that many people saw it, but like, how is this movie even in like more than 4 screens in the United States?
Okay, so I have a little like tidbit that kind of comments on that. And I listened to an interview with Robert Eggers, and they're talking about trying to sell this movie, and like he had all these really strict requirements, and they're like shopping around. And I also want to say this there's a couple movies that it goes into A24, and A24 has multiple movies on our list this year, and they seem like a company that really produces really good films, and they take chances on things. And he was talking about all these different studios. They're like shopping it around. Nobody wanted to do it, and finally at the very end, they're like, all right, call it A24, and they call them, and immediately they green light it. And this is what comes of it, quality filmmaking, people taking chances on weird shit like this.
I recently made a list on Letterboxd that's like, I mean, it's a dumb ranking of A24 movies. So it's like all the A24 movies I've seen, and just, an arbitrary ranking. Like, they could be switched at any moment, but like just looking at the top 20 A24 movies, that could be like a top of the decade list. Like, there's so many great
top
movies.
20? Damn.
I'm telling you, man, like, there's so many good A24 movies. They're putting out like the most creative movies right now. It's amazing.
They're becoming their own Criterion collection.
Just for reference, I just looked it up. This movie had a $4 million budget, and it more than tripled that with $15 million box office. So not a huge box office, blockbuster or anything, but
good.
Yeah, more than tripled its budget. And I feel like that's what they're
pretty
doing
good for an indie movie
more these days too. Like they're just like really low budget, taking big chances on really low budget movies, and then just like tripling their box office or their budget.
The Blumhouse.
Well, it's the Blumhouse model,
Yeah.
Okay, great pick, Derek. The Lighthouse. It's another one where I'm just so happy that's so high on your list. That's wonderful.
Wait, real quick, Nick, you put Us as your top horror. I put Midsommar as my top horror, and Derek put Lighthouse as his top horror.
Yeah.
Did I get that correct?
Wow. Yeah.
Unless we still have other horrors coming, but
Shaun.
I really wanted to get Happy
Midsommar.
Death Day to you up there, but I didn't.
Nick. All right.
There's still 3 more slots.
It was in my top 19, but no, sorry, spoiler. Happy Death Day to you is not in my top 4. Shaun, what is your number 4?
My number 4 is Marriage Story. No?
All yours.
Wow.
Shaun's the only one with it on his list.
I'm
Good
shocked.
fucking movie. Though.
I'm
man.
shocked. Brandon, I
sitting here
thought
at
this
number
movie
12.
would be. I thought it would be your number 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Number 12, Shaun. I'm sorry.
I loved this movie. I loved it was brilliantly written. I'm still in shock that this isn't on Brandon's list. Mr. Noah Baumbach over Woody Allen.
Yeah,
We didn't get to even talk about this movie.
By
Yeah, we
far,
didn't.
Marriage Story is Noah Baumbach's by far best movie. He's one of the best all-time directors now. Not even in your top 10.
Yeah, wow.
Shaun, so you got to do this justice. The
Yeah,
first
I
time we've
know.
talked about this movie.
Yeah, because we had to skip it on our December episode.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is a really interesting movie for me. I watched this kind of on my own, and then like I feel like I didn't get a chance to talk about it, but I just kept thinking about it like as the days went on, and I saw some YouTube videos about it and listened to some reviews of it, and then I actually rewatched it with Kelly, and we got a chance to really dig into what the movie was doing and kind of how he was portraying these characters and all the characters in the movie in such a interesting and really unique way, I feel like. And the opening of this movie is so fucking brilliant on so many levels. I guess I'm getting into a little bit more of a review, a bigger review of it, but
Yeah, the montage.
yeah, like the montage of it's these two people talking about what they like about the other person. These two married people talking about what they like about the other person, and it's like a long, maybe 10-minute sequence of just montage introducing you to these characters and immediately getting the audience to fall in love with the characters. And then immediately cutting to a scene where they are in I guess therapists or a legal counsel office, where these lists where they did this list for this kind of family therapy or something, and they refuse to read it to each other. And that's the tone that the movie starts out with, and that I feel like carries on throughout the rest of the movie in such an interesting way. It's fucking brilliant.
I've wanted to quick. Sorry, I've wanted to say this same point about Noah Baumbach for a while. Like, he is such an economical director. If that makes sense. Like, he shoves so many scenes, like it's Star Wars. Rise of the Skywalker, like, of dramas. Like, he just shows scene after scene and they're quick and fast, and you learn and grow so much with his characters throughout his whole like filmography, and it's pretty unique once you kind of start seeing what he's doing. And that opening is kind of is exactly that. Like you don't see dramas really go that quick through people's lives and
definitely.
Moments. So Shaun, you we were talking about this movie the other day in real life, non-podcast life, and I had just watched it. And I wasn't as high on it as you, and I was kind of like saying some things I didn't like about it. And you said a few things that just kind of like got stuck in my head, and you made me appreciate it more. Like it was one of those things where what you said was, what I said was I didn't like how the characters didn't really change throughout the movie. Like by the end, I was like, well, you find out everything you need to know about them in the first few minutes, and then by the end, they're still those people. And what did you say? You said that the process of divorce turned them into people that they didn't want to be and people that they aren't. And the movie is really about how tragic and upsetting the process is. And by the end of the movie, it kind of comes full circle in that they're back to normal, or how they wanted to be. And I appreciated you saying that.
Yeah. Thank you.
So,
their arc is to get them back to where kind of they started.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, again, back to the opening of this movie, you never really, only through that montage do you see who the type of people that they are, and then immediately once you get into the story of the movie, they're already starting this arc into becoming kind of ugly people through the process of divorce. And starting with with conflict and butting heads and turning into that the ugly person that they don't want to be, and then it's that journey of them kind of coming back out of that. And I thought that was really interesting about the movie. And it's also I thought it was super interesting how I felt like it had such a positive opinion on humanity, I guess, for all of its characters. There's everyone throughout this movie, or no one in this movie is dishonest or is really lying to anyone. And it's about this inevitability of the nature of humanity, that these kinds of things are going to happen, and you have to learn to rise above it, I guess, and be a good person. I just I could talk about this movie for a long time, but
I love the dynamic of the three lawyers.
Yeah, definitely.
And it seems like that kind of even touches on them. They're depicted in such a more I think honest way in this film than in others. You get to see how they're actually just normal, nice people, but they're cutthroat as fuck when it comes to their job.
And all three of them had.
I think we could talk about Laura Dern and her perspective and her ultimate goals in life and her outfits. I think we could talk about Laura Dern's character for an hour at least. A lot of complicated issues there. Although
her choices of lunch food.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, her outfits though. I also want to give a shout out to the lady, the social worker who had that glass of water.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks for the water, for all the space. She was great. But I do think we should move on to the next movie.
Yeah.
Just we have.
Okay. Yep. Let's do it.
Cool. We're at my number 4. I'm kind of nervous at this point, guys. This is kind of a funny point in the podcast. I just want to say this really quick. At this point, I know one of my movies in my top 4 is going to be on more lists, but I'm kind of wondering if any of my other 4 are going to be on any of your guys' lists.
Wow.
I'm just I'm looking at it.
Yeah,
and
I know what you're talking about.
What?
I'm just I don't know. We'll see.
I can
Anyway, so
this.
my number 4
confuses me.
My number.
All right.
Here we go. Here we go. Number 4, The Irishman.
Punt.
Ooh.
You're safe.
Oh my gosh, my heart skipped a beat. Whew.
Oh god.
I was a little worried about that too, Nick. Oh man, this is getting crazy.
Were you worried that no one was going to punt it?
Yeah, a little bit. I just was like,
Nick thought that was going to be one of his onlys.
Well, the Irishman actually just moved down my list a little bit, but
Yeah.
anyway. Okay, so we're at number 3. Top threes. Here we go, guys. Top threes. Brandon, what's your number 3?
Yeah. All right, so I just have to say, this is probably my best top 3 of maybe this decade. Like, this is crazy, guys.
Like
Yeah,
like
3,
you
2,
did
and
your
1.
best at picking the top 3, or oh
Cinema did the best at creating the top 3.
okay.
Oh, my goodness. I'm so nervous.
Please forgive me, you guys. Number 3 is a little movie called Parasite.
Punt.
Okay. Number 3. Derek, what's your number 3?
My number 3 is this really small indie movie that came out this year called Avengers Endgame.
Derek.
Oh, Derek, punt.
Oh my god!
What?
What?
Oh my god!
Nick.
Wow! All right. Good.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. We'll come back.
Nick, your prophecy is not coming.
I know. That's
true.
why I was nervous. That's why I'm glad I was wrong. I was nervous. Like I was like,
Yeah.
I just didn't know. But cool.
Damn.
Wow.
You
Shaun.
couldn't even give Avengers to Derek, Nick.
I know.
It's insulting.
God, so mean. All
My,
right.
my
Shaun.
number 3 film of the decade is Jojo Rabbit.
Decade.
Oh, sorry. Oh my God.
shit.
No. I made my decade list. Yeah, number
Good
3,
pick.
Jojo Rabbit.
Cool.
And Derek hasn't seen this movie, right?
No.
Derek, this is like your number 1 of the year once you see it.
Really?
This movie was made for you.
Yeah, Derek, you really should see this movie.
It's playing right down the street. I'll try to see it before Oscars for sure.
Yeah. Man, this movie's crazy. It's such a bizarre movie to tell a story that's a comedy about Nazis. As far as I know, has only been done like with a couple other movies. There's like The Producers, I guess, vaguely about Nazis, but then like Life is Beautiful is the only other one that comes to mind. There's probably
And the
maybe some others.
the great dictator, Charlie Chaplin.
Right. It's true. It's a good one. But yeah, it definitely hasn't been done very often, and I imagine it's because it's extremely difficult to pull off. And it's I really feel like this movie does it. It does it really well. I feel like it balances the really serious nature of the Nazis and Nazi Germany and the Holocaust and all of that ugliness with a light kind of imagination and an innocence of a child. And it's on one hand such a funny movie, and on the other hand such a tragic and sad movie. It's so beautifully made for so much of it, and it's I mean, I think it's his masterpiece at this point. Taika Waititi's masterpiece. It's such brilliant filmmaking, and I rewatched this movie just the other day, and when I was in Los Angeles, I actually took Aunt Laura to see it, and it's an emotional film, like in all the aspects of emotion.
Did that help it go up or down, if anyone?
I think I don't think I changed it. It just solidified how much I loved this movie.
I just want to echo one point. The funniness of this movie can't be understated. Taika Waititi in this film is a comedic genius of a writer, and it had me laughing my ass off at how just clever and hilarious the humor is.
For sure.
Brilliant comedy.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, that's I guess what I have to say about it. It's a super interesting movie to me. And it's really unique. I feel like, and definitely stands out even amongst the other Nazi movie comedies that I've seen. So yeah, my number 3.
Do you consider the Grand Budapest Hotel a Nazi comedy?
I guess no, I don't. There's definitely Nazis in it.
But good reference, Derek.
I mean, I wouldn't put it in the same category of when it comes to the seriousness of the subject matter.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. That's an interesting comparison, though, Derek. That's interesting. I love both those filmmakers, and both those movies didn't really affect me as much as a lot of other people. Like, Shaun, I'm really glad you loved it so much. I don't want to take that away from you, but for whatever reason, just taste or whatever, Jojo didn't do it for me, but neither did the Grand Budapest Hotel. That's kind of my least favorite Wes Anderson movie. I know a lot of people, it's their favorite Wes Anderson movie, but but yeah, I mean, Jojo, great. I mean, it's super funny. It's pretty cool that you have it so high. Brandon, you had it on your list too? You had it at number 6 or something?
Yep. Number 6.
Very, very cool. Cool. So, my number 3 is also a Nazi movie, but not a comedy. It's A Hidden Life. So, I'm assuming I'm the only one that has that one.
The opposite of a comedy.
Right. There's no humor in this movie. It's just beautiful. We just talked about it last month on the podcast, so I don't really feel like I need to talk about it too much, but it's just so beautiful in every way, and it's meditative, and it just had me thinking about all sorts of things, had me thinking about what I would do in the face of evil, and how evil can be disguised, and evil sometimes doesn't even fully look evil, and the price of saving your soul, or the price of doing what you think is right, and if it's worth it sometimes. It just had all these really big ideas, and I just love sitting with this movie and just taking in all of the Terrence Malick. And I'm sorry I keep going back to it, but it's taste is a big part of this. I am inclined to be a Terrence Malick fan. I think he's a genius. I think he's on close to the same level as Stanley Kubrick. He's just a fucking fantastic filmmaker, and he is doing his thing. And this was, to me, him saying something important and making a statement with it. And yeah, it was long, and it was totally Terrence Malick. So if you're not totally on board with Terrence Malick, I could see being this movie's kind of drag, but I was moved by this movie. So I have it really high because of how moving it was. And
good pick.
Mm-hmm.
So that was A Hidden Life. That was my number 3. So
Shaun, did you have it anywhere? I know you didn't even rate it.
Oh,
was
yeah.
This top 15 or 20?
I don't rate Terrence Malick movies anymore. No,
okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Wait, what was the question? What
he was asking if you considered
close?
it. Did it
yeah.
Yeah. Was it close?
I put it. I think I threw 23 or 24 movies on a list, and it was one of them that was up for.
It was above being considered.
It left pretty quickly, but
okay.
Yeah, I did really like the movie.
Nice.
Okay, so final 2, top 2. So this is where it gets really serious.
I don't know. I'm my process of elimination. Brandon's list is going to bug me, but let's go. Let's go.
Okay, Brandon.
Wait.
Brandon, you're number 2.
Okay. All right, my number 2 film is Sam Mendes' 1917.
Punt.
Okay, let's move on.
Shaun's.
Derek, you're number 2.
Okay.
That was my number 2 also.
Oh! Boom, 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 boom.
Wah, wah,
Yeah.
wah.
Cool, Shaun. Write it down. Mark it down, Shaun.
Yeah.
Sean's keeping
Marked
track
it.
of the points, by the way.
My number 2 film is
Wait, Nick?
Nick had it.
It's on.
Nick had it at number 10.
I had it number
Yeah,
10. I had number 10. So
Oh, you already said it. Okay, yeah. Okay.
you guys
My-
yelled at me. Remember, I was shamed.
My number 2 film is The Irishman.
Nice.
Nice pick, Sean.
Yeah. This movie.
I feel like you keep having every movie just like 1 or 2 higher than everyone else.
Did you have this on your list, Brandon? It was just
No,
me.
guys.
Yeah, this was me and
Sorry.
Nick are the only ones.
This is my number 11.
Yeah. This is a super interesting movie. Not only as on its own. Not only on its own is it a really interesting movie, just like the story that it's telling and kind of what it's doing within the movie, but also very much like as a continuation of like film history and the gangster genre. It's like commenting. It's Martin Scorsese kind of commenting on his film career in a lot of ways, I feel like.
Yeah.
And he's doing some super interesting things in this movie. By talking about talking about his own career and like how we see violence and how we glorify violence and how we I guess look at our own history in
So
this
true.
country. It's Martin Scorsese. It's a masterpiece. He's at the top of his game, coming back to a genre that he is the best at, and it's bringing back actors that into the spotlight that have been out of it for quite a while, and showing that they are capable of just as capable today as they were in their heyday. I feel like I could dig pretty deep into this movie right now, but
Right.
I'm trying to keep it short.
Yeah. I mean, Sean, I just want to echo what you're saying. Like, and I'm sorry I keep saying this as if it's a buzzword, but to me, this was, again, like a very contemplative, meditative movie. This was, it was 3.5 hours long, maybe longer, and it was just kind of exploring almost like the realness of gangster movies. Like we have these legends of these people that are often glorified. Even with Goodfellas, how there's like a rough ending. The first half of the movie is pretty awesome.
Things are great.
Yeah, and I think The Irishman doesn't really have any great. It has a little bit of them like going to a party or two or whatever, but mostly it's like it's a pretty dry movie, and it's just kind of like you get to spend time with these characters and just see what actually happens and what the actual violence would look like and how it really affects loved ones and what they go through. And I was actually talking about this movie today because it's a pretty interesting like idea of like an adapted screenplay based on history. So this movie, like, it's about this guy played by Robert De Niro, and apparently when he was like on his deathbed, he like confessed to doing all these things, and then he died, and then someone wrote a book about what he said. So it's like impossible to verify if he actually did any of these things, or even if he said that he did these things. Like, for all we know, this guy who wrote the book could have made most of it up. Like, there's no way of verifying any of it. And so, like, this isn't a book. This isn't a movie about facts of history. It's it's kind of like an acknowledgement that history is kind of confusing, and you don't really know what the absolute truth is, because there kind of is no absolute truth, and all that's left is like what you've done. And with gangsters, what they've done is sad. It's lonely. And I mean, it's Martin Scorsese like at the top of his game again, and this late career Scorsese stuff where he's kind of like slow and meditative. I mean, Silence was kind of the same thing where he was looking back on religion at an older age and kind of slowly examining it. And it's pretty great that he's telling these really personal stories so well at his age.
Yeah, for sure.
To
add to what you just said, Nick, like I think not only can you not corroborate anything he said, but I think a lot of what he said is pretty widely known to be like outright false. Like this guy if he actually did write this book based on that interview that he did, this is a guy who lied about a lot of his life, and it's pretty certain that he lied about a huge chunk of it, and we don't know the other stuff that can't be proven or confirmed. We have no idea how much of that is even true. So I feel like doing a historical fiction about something that is so there's a lot of really interesting like what is truth, and like what are the stories that we're telling ourselves, and like just like on an individual level. I think that's really interesting, and like how this guy wanted the world to see him, I guess, and how this guy wanted the world to see his life on his deathbed. So like it's a lot of interesting dynamics like coming into this movie, and then like on top of it, it's just such a solid, interesting movie in and of itself. I really love this movie.
Yeah, I'm glad you had it so high on your list, Shaun. I had it at number 2. Honestly, I had it sitting there at number 2, and this movie was a last-minute switch with what turned out to be my number 2, and that is Avengers Endgame.
Ooh, yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, man, I thought you were going to do that number 1.
No.
I don't know what's happening.
Nope, I put Avengers Endgame at number 2. It just wound up there, guys. It was just... I don't know. I honestly think this might be one of the best blockbusters ever made. Like, in terms of, like, big mainstream filmmaking, nothing like this has ever happened before. To the point of, like 25 movies culminating in this big event. But not just that. Like, it was successful in that, but the fact that, like, what happens in Infinity War actually really affects the world and the characters. How the movie spends ample time dealing with death and dying and surviving and trying to move on, and these kind of big issues for a movie that's going to make $3 billion. It goes in directions that I thought would have had to have been bold, and then they did it and it was bold. And then not to mention, like, again, a concept that I'm inclined to like, time travel. It had a big portion of it was about time travel, and you got to revisit these other movies from the MCU in such wonderful ways. And it was funny, it had great action, it was emotional. It was everything that you'd want in a blockbuster. And honestly, it probably will, like, this kind of thing will probably never happen again. And I just had to give it credit for that. I just had to. So, that's why I have Avengers Endgame at number 2.
Credit where credit's due.
Yeah, it was my number 3. And on top of everything you just said, like, I think this is just a shockingly well-crafted film in every aspect. Like, even and especially the writing in this movie is so, like, the story they're telling is so complex and has so much baggage and has so many interweaving storylines and, like, like time, or what do you like, not time zones,
timelines,
like, timelines. Yeah. Timelines is what I'm looking for. Like, there's just so much happening, and they have to cram in so much shit into this movie. It's shocking that they came out with anything at the end that made sense. And the fact that they came out, not only did it make sense, but like they brought like an ending to these characters and this storyline that like mattered. It had weight, and it felt like right. Everything about it just felt like, yes, thank you for figuring out how to end this in a way that like was going to make this 10 years feel worth it, and it did, like more than did. And that is just like you said, Nick, I think I easily say it's the best blockbuster ever made. I can't think of any other movie ever in the history of cinema that's had to do something that complex and pull it off with such like grace, and like it feels so easy. Like it just, like all their movies do, but it just like goes down easy. Like it's just like, oh yeah, this just goes, and you're just like, fuck yeah, this all, like, yeah, keep going. You're just like excited.
I remember one interview that they had back during Civil War where they said they went so far out of their way, the Russo brothers, they went so far out of their way to honest trailers proof their films and their scripts ahead of time. And it's
not honest trailers, right?
It can't be seen any more than in this movie, Endgame, with all the weight and baggage it has. I feel like that's kind of what you're trying to say, Derek. It's just like, it just somehow makes sense, and it's not falling apart at the seams of all its like fallacies, and that is just such a feat to accomplish. Yeah,
and everyone like, God, this. I mean, of course, for me, that this is like the hardest I cried in the movies this year, and it was just like just the way these movies exist nowadays. It's hard to put finality to them because it's like, it's just such a easy like well for a studio to go to, especially Disney, and especially their biggest money makers. It's like, how do you're going to end like Robert Downey Jr.'s like storyline on here? Like, I honestly didn't think they were going to. And the fact that they brought like a really, like for me, a very, very, very satisfying and emotionally satisfying ending to that character. It was like, it could not, I thought that was like as perfect as an ending that they could have given to a character. And the fact that they had to like handle like wrapping up that like 10-year arc is just nuts. It's insane. I couldn't believe when like the ending happened, I was still just in disbelief of what was happening. Not just that like not that the concept was too hard to grasp. I just couldn't believe that they pulled it off. Could not believe it all. I did not, going into it, as much as much as I respect the Russos, like I did not think that this movie could have been as good as it was. And so that's a big reason why it's so far up there. It's like, it's just shocking that it's so good. But
so is that number 3 and number 2?
Yeah.
Respectively.
Okay, here we go. Final one picks for everybody. And I know some of it's obvious, but not all of it's obvious. Maybe all of it's obvious, but we'll see. Brandon?
What does that mean, Nick?
I don't know. I would need to double check my notes. I don't know. Brandon, what's your number 1?
Actually,
crunch some numbers.
Yeah, I know what his number 1 is.
All right. So my number 1 for the year 2019 is Uncut Gems.
What's that?
No, nobody else. This is the Safdie brothers' new film, and it blew me the fuck away. I think this was one of the movies where I walked out of the theater just like feeling like I just witnessed like a perfect movie from beginning to end. And the intensity and the pace and entertainment, like not a second was wasted, not a second I was bored. It was so thrilling. My palms were sweaty. And And just they crafted such a unique look at this film about the Diamond District in New York City. And Adam Sandler's performance is like amazing. He's not getting enough credit for it. Congrats to him. But Derek, you haven't seen Uncut Gems, right?
No.
Okay.
You should do
Sad.
that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we just talked about this movie like at length on our last episode.
You said
it just
yeah. You said Joker was the most intense movie of the year, and I was just like, oh, Uncut Gems, Derek. Can't wait for you to see it.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is my number one movie of 2019.
Yeah, this was my number 5. Yeah, totally agree. This is such a unique movie. So interesting. It stands out like from any other movie I've seen, I think. Yeah, I think I said in the last episode, I walked out of the movie and I had to like regain my bearings. Like I was in like a haze walking out of the movie. Yeah, it's super interesting, especially for two pretty new filmmakers.
Yeah, I love this movie too. I had it at number 6 on mine. It could have gone higher. It was really great. It was
Nice.
it was a great movie, and I don't know. I feel like we talked about it a bunch on the last episode, so I don't really feel like I have that much more to add right now. But I just loved the pace of it. I loved hanging out with the characters. I loved how desperate he was. You know, I mean, I remember on the last episode we kind of had a little bit of a tiff about how and whether or not he was a piece of shit. You know, and I still kind of feel like he's not really that terrible of a person. He just was a very terribly desperate person, and being in his world was so stressful, but kind of fun too. I don't know. I kind of liked it. I kind of liked how stressful and weird it was, and I kind of think he did too.
Yeah.
I think that was kind of the point of the movie a little bit, is that like he
Right.
he was addicted to that rush, and
Yeah,
but you know,
adrenaline junkie
I gotta point out just how like gritty and grimy and sleazy this movie is, just from the way it's shot and lit to what all the characters are doing. It's like such a unique feel all the way through, and this movie would not be as high as it was if it did not stick the landing for me. Those last like 5 minutes, my God, like it hit me so
absolutely,
hard,
dude.
and was just the perfect way to end this mess.
I've been watching basketball and I keep thinking about like the final few minutes of the movie and like that tip off. Like I just keep thinking about like the tip off, and then how he's like, oh man, we would have been screwed if he didn't get that. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
it's so good. But yeah, dude, great number 1. Surprised. I'm honestly surprised it was that high, but it's cool that it is. You know, good surprising pick, man. Derek, your number 1.
Do it.
Do it.
Do it. My number 1's Parasite.
That's my number
June
1. That's my number 1 as well.
Yes.
So,
It's kind of like, it sounds like I've been like trying to get people at work to watch it, and they're hearing that so often from people that like it's becoming a thing, or like they don't want to see it. Like it's like this movie's
How are people
getting
talking
so
about this Korean
hyped.
film so much?
It literally might be getting overhyped, I guess. Even though it is my number 1 movie, like just people are really
people are
liking it. It's
loving
just
it.
awesome. It's so cool that it's like doing that. That's
yeah, I mean, the
it's
whole
just really
sensation
awesome.
of something getting overhyped is an interesting one. I kind of feel like that happens every year with a certain few movies. Like I kind of feel like Roma was kind of overhyped because it was such a small personal story. You know, very well done, but it was like a diary entry. But I don't know. I feel like Parasite, like, no one, I haven't heard anyone be disappointed in it yet. The closest I've heard is, like, my parents saw it, and all that I got from them was, yeah, it was intense. Like, that's all I got. But
Which
it was. It was very intense, but it also had so much to say about so many things. Like, it was, so much of it was about social issues and the wage gap between the rich and the poor, but also how the rich and the poor are all just regular people as well. Like on a human level, people aren't that different. And I don't know, it really had a lot to say, and it was intense, but it was also pretty funny, and it took you for a ride. You know, like, there was a lot of surprises with it. It was so good, and I don't know. I'm personally so happy that this movie is getting all this attention, because it is, a movie like this being nominated for Best Picture and having it as a front run, not just be nominated, but as a front runner for Best Picture, it is opening doors for people to see this movie. I mean, Bong Joon-ho said, I think when he won the Golden Globe for Best Director, he said, if you can step above that 1-inch barrier of subtitles, then you're going to discover all sorts of great stories. And that's a really special point. Like, that's a really important point to be made. And I'm glad that people like my parents saw this movie, because it is a totally unique experience, and there aren't many movies like it, and it challenges you. And
did your parents see it?
Yeah,
in Marysville?
dude. It's playing. Right,
that's so cool.
Yeah,
it's
this is a movie parents are just hearing about. Like, how is that even happening?
I mean, that's crazy. Yeah, because we saw it in October. I think it was October that we saw, maybe early November, and now it's playing. It's playing in Marysville. Andrew saw it last weekend in Stanwood. It's that little Stanwood.
I saw it yesterday in Alderwood.
Yeah, I mean, it's.
Jeez.
Parasite is playing in Stanwood? What the hell?
The lighting fixtures aren't even like on the walls in that building.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites.
Somehow they got this Korean film.
I feel like I can't think of another foreign film that's had this kind of impact since Crouching Tiger. Like, I remember Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon was this huge movie, and it came to Marysville, and it was all over the place. But since then I've got nothing. Nothing comes even close in that respect.
So that's the hype.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about the movie?
But just on its own, like, it's just Bong Joon-ho he like really quietly became. I didn't realize that I loved every movie he's made that I've seen so far. I haven't even seen all his movies until like watching this and just looking back at his career. I'm like, Jesus, every single movie he makes. I think they're all 5 stars. Every movie I've seen of his are all 5 stars so far. And this one just is like, I think kind of like we said with Quentin Tarantino, I think this is his most mature movie. It's not, the other ones do have gimmicky premises to some extent. Like, Snowpiercer's a sci-fi apocalypse movie. The Host is a monster movie. Okja's kind of its own weird thing.
The most gimmicky.
Yeah, it's like, and then this is like fairly straightforward, visually and I guess conceptually, but it's just so. I think we've all have talked about a lot how good he is at bouncing tones, and I think that's one of the most unique things about this movie is just how clearly and cleverly it drifts between comedy, thriller, drama, and even horror. It's like it's so seamless, but it's. I don't really know. Like it's beyond my realm of being able to understand how you do something like that so well, and he just does it so easily in this movie. And I feel like it's. I just bought it the other day and rewatched it, and God, I noticed so many more intricacies in the film. Like we don't have time to talk about it right now, but there's just so many little things, and I'm like, look, this is so well written, and directed, it's just like, it's a masterpiece. I don't really know what else to say. It's easily my favorite movie of the year. And it's definitely my favorite of his movies. And it deserves all the recognition it's getting.
Yeah. I feel like a good marker of hype or something being overhyped is when you'll see it come out to generally pretty positive reviews and then, or like audience reviews. And then as it like gets a wider audience, that'll kind of start to drop significantly. But this movie is held, like right now it's at, I believe 93% in Rotten Tomatoes audience score. And it's pretty much held that its whole run. So, I mean, people are getting the word out there and people are loving this movie, it seems like.
Someone said we saw it in October and it has not left the Alderwood Theater yet.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's been playing there this whole time.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I just saw it yesterday at Alderwood and I didn't know it has been there since October.
It dropped down to like one show time, but now they're starting to give it more screenings again.
Yeah. It's definitely impressive for a foreign film.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so that was me and Derek's number one. That's Parasite. So, Shaun, what is your number one?
Mm-hmm. Yep, just one more.
What could it be?
What could it be? It's 1917, my number one movie of the year.
Nice.
That's wild.
My number two, by the way.
My number two also.
Yep. Nick's number 10.
I had a number 10. Sorry.
So defeated.
So good, though. I don't know. I just had number 10.
Yeah, I watched this movie and walking out of the theater, I was like, well, that's my number one. There it is.
Wow.
Yep, it's all over.
That's funny.
And yeah, this movie is everything I go to the movies for. Super interesting filmmaking techniques, a great story with brilliantly conceived characters and a super emotional journey. It's, back in high school, that's what I wanted to do when I got into filmmaking, like back in 9th grade with the Lord of the Rings, and that's what I still love about filmmaking. This movie is everything I love about movies. It is, and it's so much more than I guess you could maybe call it a gimmick of what the movie is doing with the single, what looks like a single shot throughout the entire movie. It's so much more than that, and it's so brilliantly put together. Everything about it works, and it is just enough of everything to do what it's trying to do. Like it's just enough character and characterization to do what its end goal is. It's just enough story and plot to do what it's trying to do. It's just enough like emotional impact to do what it's trying to do. And it just like everything comes together in such a brilliant way for me. And yeah, I love the movie. Absolutely love the movie.
So I wrote a thing in my Letterboxd review about the last 30-second climax of this movie that was incredible to me. Mm-hmm. And Andrew texted me because I guess he just saw it. And he asked me, this was really interesting because I thought there was no question about it. He was like, what 30-second moment were you talking about, Brandon? There were so many. Mm. And I was like, well, which one do you think I was talking about? And then he mentioned the singing moment with all the people. Yeah. And I think that just goes a long way to show you just like, there's not even there's just so many ridiculously powerful scenes in this film that you can't even kind of agree on that. And he kind of made me realize that when he sent me that text.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a similar conversation with Andrew. He called me up after he saw it and was like, "What was your most powerful part?" And I was like, great question. But I have like 3 parts, I think. And I listed them off, like, when they were
Wrong.
for the first time, and when they were I listed them off, and it was
the
like,
rat.
Yeah. And even like just from the beginning, I loved how it throws you into this world, this mess. Like them going first, they get their mission, and then they're walking through the trenches, and there's a dialogue and conversation there, and then they get to the ladder, and they go up and over the ladder, and they are, even though there's like hundreds of people right behind them, as soon as they go over that ladder, they are completely alone. And from then on, it's like, it's just this intense journey that, I mean, pays off in like 4 different brilliant climaxes, and so many memorable
Yeah, and I was
moments.
just like, all right, now what's going to happen? We're just going to watch these guys walk and talk for 2 hours. But then the camera pans by this dead horse, and you're just like, oh, fuck. And then they go into like a hole that had been blown up by a mortar, and the guy puts his mangled hand into a dead corpse, and everyone in the theater gasps. And it's just like from then on, nonstop, just perfectly paced, like set pieces.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, this like what I was trying to describe with Parasite, I think I actually felt it more with this movie, which is like a lot of times you see movies, and especially if you're not super impressed with them, you're like, God, I would have done this, I could have made this better. Like, this is one of those movies that when I walked out, I was just like, this is so far beyond, like, I could never even begin to like think up the cool things they do in this movie, and just it's just so it's so cool to see people working at such a high level, like, and like it makes everything, just like every scene in the movie is just so exciting and just unique, and not what you expected, I don't know. And I think the gimmick, I think what you were just describing, Shaun, when they go up that ladder, like that's the exact moment. And I think it's really key that they put it there, that like you kind of buy into the gimmick, because right there you feel it too, just like they do when you go over that. You're like, oh, we're in this alone. Like we're just right there with them, and
just these 2 characters and a camera.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, really incredible filmmaking.
What a year.
Yeah.
There it is.
It's the year.
All right.
Okay.
You guys ready?
Ooh, there's
crunch
no
the numbers.
ties.
Yeah, crunch them numbers.
Crunching.
Are there any ties?
All right. It's done.
Oh.
Oh, click off.
At number 10, The Last Black Man in San Francisco, with a total of 10 points on 2 lists. Number 9 is The Lighthouse with 12 points on 2 lists. Number 8 is Midsommar with 13 points on 3 lists.
Midsommar beat Lighthouse.
Yeah. Number 7 is Jojo Rabbit with 14 points on 2 lists. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was number 6 with 15 points, which was on 3 lists. The Irishman was number 5 with 17 points on 2 lists.
2 really high lists.
And then number 4 was Avengers Endgame on 2 lists with 18 points, so barely beat out.
Did it. We did it.
Did it.
Take that, Mark
Carried it through.
Scorsese.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who would have thought? Avengers over Scorsese.
An Ant-Man movie beat out a Scorsese movie. Number 3 was Uncut Gems with 23 points on 3 lists. Number 2 was
Nice.
1917 with 32 points on all 4 lists. And then Parasite
There we
at
go.
number 1 with 35 points on all 4 lists.
Okay.
I'm good with that.
Yeah,
Number
it's a good
1.
list. That is a
Parasite's
solid,
the monthly movie dispatch
Pretty
film of the
awesome.
year.
yeah.
What a great year
Such a
for
cliche.
movies. This was something.
Yeah, such a
really
cliche.
Do we want to say our runners up real quick? List them off, or
Yeah.
I have a couple.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Let's all say our runners up. If we've got
just
a
run
few,
through them
you
real
know,
quick?
we can
Might
pull
be
them
fun.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Might as
My
well.
number 11 was The Irishman. Number 12 was
Okay.
Under the Silver Lake. Number 13 was Knives Out, and 14 was Toy Story 4.
Nice. I'll do a couple specific shout outs.
What
I
about
want
you,
to say I Lost My Body. To me, best animated film of the year.
Oh, yeah.
That was number 11. And then another one that 4 stars was Honeyland, which to me was the best documentary of the year. I don't think any of us brought up a documentary. I really hope that wins at the Oscars. It's an incredible film.
Nice.
Cool. What about you, Shaun? Do you have any?
Yeah, I guess mine are at number 11, The Farewell, and number 12 is Little Women, which no one had on their.
Oh, nice.
No one had Little Women on
Yeah.
their list, which is
Good
so
movie, though.
sad.
Yeah, and no one had. So I haven't seen Little Women, but I do think that we need to say that it's one of those things where we've got this podcast and it's got 4 dudes on it.
Yeah.
I can't help but think that if we
Yeah.
had maybe different representation, then maybe Little Women would have made more of our lists. Again, I'm sorry I haven't seen it
Yeah.
yet, and I think there's someone else who hasn't seen it, but you know,
I mean,
Oh yeah, that's
That hurts
part
its
of it.
it
chances.
sounds like it was
a little.
incredible. So, yeah, I mean, I had a few that I just kind of wanted to like list off that no one had mentioned yet. Like I said, I had I had The Lighthouse number 11, but the movie Tigers Are Not Afraid I watched for Horror Movie Month, and that's my number 12. The Peanut Butter Falcon, I loved that movie. You know, I also had Toy Story 4 and Happy Death Day to You was one of my favorites, and another one, One Cut of the Dead, was another one I watched for Horror Movie Month, but that was another one of my favorites for the year. So just wanted to mention those as honorable mentions. A few others that we had already talked about, but I mean, it was just such a good year for movies, though. I just want to go over some plugs that we have coming up for other episodes. We're going to do a top 10 of the decade, because we love doing these top 10 lists. This is like our favorite kind of episode to do. So we're going to do the decade list, which will turn out really fun. I think we're going to do that in February. We're also doing like an Oscar contest off air. We're all going to submit our picks for which movies are going to win the rewards, and whoever gets the most correct, we'll make everyone watch that movie, and then we'll talk about the movie on the podcast. So that'll be next month that we do that. But yeah, those are all things that we have coming up. Anyway,
Yep.
gonna sign off.
Bye.
Peace out.
Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.